Hey, howdy, hi, it's me, Zombie Bri. Today we're gonna start a little series called Rapid Fire Reviews. And yes, I look like this now, so deal with it. Anyway, I tend to watch a lot of movies, like an absurd amount of movies. I got a lot of free time on my hands, so whatever. Anyway, since the beginning of this year, I've been keeping a list of every single movie I watched. And so, I figured I'd turn this idea into a series because, I'm a whore for content. So join me and let's go through every movie I watched in January with some rapid fire reviews. Okay, so start the clock, and go! White Noise, directed by Noah Baumbach. It was all over the place and somehow never landed. Didn't care for it. Apocalypto, directed by Mel Gibson. An absolute masterpiece that never fails to impress me. I will go on record and say it's Gibson's best directing effort. Candy Corn, directed by Josh Hasty. A poor excuse for a movie with pointless cameos from top-tier horror icons. Why does this movie exist? We're All Going to the World's Fair, directed by Jane Schoenbrunn. A weird little fever dream with decent acting and an overall meaningless story. It's just too slow to recommend. The Stendhal Syndrome, directed by the legendary Dario Argento. Personally, not his best, but definitely not even close to his worst. And even then, his worst is still a masterpiece. Dracula 3D, again, directed by Dario Argento. Great and daring special effects, but I don't like the fact that he knocked off his own daughter barely 30 minutes into the movie. The Menu, directed by Mark Mylod. Somehow a movie about food managed to become an incredibly shocking, tension-filled cult classic. I love it. The Trip, directed by Tommy Wirkola. Half drama, half horror, all funny. A perfect blend of genres with a relentless pace and the loving Numira pace. Gladiator, directed by Ridley Scott. A great story told on a small personal scale surrounded by an epic soundtrack. A truly historical end to 20th century filmmaking. The Pale Blue Eye, directed by Scott Cooper. A decent Poe story if not for Harry Melling's performance alone. It's a little slow in my book, but still has a good mystery. Megan, directed by Gerard Johnstone. A perfect example of social media influence. This movie is painted, rehashed garbage. Don't believe the reviews. It sucks. Trail to Terror, directed by Dakota Layden. A Discovery Channel documentary that actually doesn't suck. Lots of interesting, scary moments and genuinely entertaining. 2 Seconds, directed by Mervyn LeRoy. Possibly one of Edward G. Robinson's best performances. It's infuriating watching this tough gangster get thrown around like a stuffed animal. Demonic Toys, directed by Peter Manoogian. A half-decent attempt at trying to rise above the Full Moon quality standard, but unfortunately it didn't work. Demonic Toys 2, directed by William Butler. The sequel is predictably worse, but also one of the worst films ever made. I didn't see that coming. Baby Oopsie, directed by William Butler again. This time he does a better job with an even more ridiculous spin-off concept. It was pretty fun. Baby Oopsie Murder Dolls, directed by William Butler. Why anyone would care to continue the spin-off idea is beyond me, but now I'm somehow firmly invested. City of the Living Dead, directed by Lucio Fulci. A brilliantly original, over-the-top sort of zombie film that will definitely affect you mentally. Corona Zombies, directed by Charles Band. The pandemic hit us all hard and it hit Full Moon Studios even harder, as you see with this half-assed but hilarious dubbed parody. And Robin Sidney. Don't ever forget about Robin Sidney. Bad Channels, directed by Charles Band again. A complete letdown for me. Great concept, but terrible execution. I really wanted to like this one. Ice Cream Man, directed by Norman Epstein. A horrendously terrible commercial for Converse shoes. It also turned me off from ice cream forever. Good job, you suck. Barbie and Kendra Storm Area 51, directed by Charles Band. Another dubbed movie, but this time it's absolutely hilarious. Also, you can never go wrong with Robin Sidney. Trust me. The Killer Eye, directed by David Dakota. A daringly slow creature feature with 2% creature and 98% weird sexual encounters. It's really bad. End of story. The Killer Eye Haunted Halloween. A daringly fast-paced creature feature with 50% creature and 50% awesome sexual encounters. It's really fun. End of story. Barbie and Kendra Save the Tiger King, directed by Charles Band. Another dubbed movie. This time, it's not great. Probably because I never wasted my time with the Tiger King show, but still, you gotta love Robin Sidney. Back to the Future, directed by Robert Zemeckis. Cruising right along with the greatest film of all time, we're really flying. What did I tell you? 88 miles per hour! Skullheads, directed by Charles Band. Massively disappointing while simultaneously not being disappointing at all, if you catch my drift. Robin Sidney rules! Unlucky Charms, directed by Charles Band. Great concept, devastating execution because of budget restraints. I could have went my whole life without seeing this movie. Back to the Future Part 2, directed by Robert Zemeckis. The second half of the greatest film ever made, and my personal favorite of the trilogy. Beyond the Door, directed by... oh boy, here we go. Beyond the Door, directed by Ovidio G. Asinitis. Step aside, William Friedkin, there's another devil possession film out there with absolutely horrifying visuals and atmosphere. The Haunted Casino, directed by Charles Band. No. Just... no. Cleopatra, directed by Joseph L. Mankiewicz. A 4-hour-long epic masterpiece that has 2 stories and only 1 Elizabeth Taylor. 11 out of 10. Will watch again. Sick, directed by John Hyams. What happens when Kevin Williamson writes a script for anything? You get gold. Solid fucking gold. This film is a cult classic in training. Alexander, directed by Oliver Stone. Beautiful historical epic that decides to focus on the man and not the world around him. Colin Farrell never disappoints. Now, if you'll excuse me, we'll be stopping off for a quick visit in Brian De Palma land. Dressed to Kill, directed by Brian De Palma. A straight-up masterclass in everything a suspense thriller should be. It's perfect. The whole movie is perfect. Obsession, directed by Brian De Palma. Quite slow, even for me, but a hell of an ending. No one rips off Hitchcock better than Brian De Palma. Femme Fatale, directed by Brian De Palma. Rebecca Romijn carries this already expertly crafted thriller on her back and then betrays us all. You bitch. Murder a la mode, directed by Brian De Palma. A directorial debut that immediately shows his talent had been set in stone since the beginning of time. Greetings, directed by Brian De Palma. An early Robert De Niro film that feels like an early Richard Linklater film. Weirdly complimentary. I like it. The Old Way, directed by Brett Donahue, a western with Nicolas Cage. I really wanted to like it, and I do, sort of. It's pretty lacking on everything, but, I mean, Nicolas Cage. Snow Falls, directed by Colton Tran, a masterclass on how not to make a movie. The script is completely made up of cliches, and the acting makes me feel sorry for these people. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, directed by Nathan Price. The book wasn't that great either. This is a good example of not listening to the first person who tells you should turn your book into a movie. The Wedding Party, directed by Brian De Palma, Robert De Niro's true first feature film. It's kind of slow and boring and really not that good, but it is part of two important pieces of history. Try saying that 5 times fast. There's Something Wrong with the Children, directed by Roxanne Benjamin. I thought the twist was going to be aliens. I was wrong, but still immensely satisfied. Great story, great camera work. Blew My Mind, directed by Lisa Brulman. This is the movie 13, except with a German mermaid. Excellent, brutal coming-of-age story with raw visuals. Ben-Hur, directed by William Wyler. Another massive historical epic. This one is beloved by many. I think it's okay. Great performances, but the story is meh. Jung-E, directed by Sang-Ho Yeon. Another PSA on why AI is bad. This one has shades of iRobot, but overall it was very enjoyable with great action scenes. About Schmidt, directed by Alexander Payne, a mundane but somehow interesting look at retirement through the eyes of Jack Nicholson. Heartwarming film that really didn't need that hot tub scene with Kathy Bates. Another Woman, directed by Woody Allen, a seemingly pointless chip off a bigger story that probably wasn't interesting in the first place. Not his best film. Scare Package, directed by like 7 people I don't have time to name. It's a film for the self-aware die-hard horror fan. There's really nothing to complain about with this film if you get the jokes. The New World, directed by Terrence Malick. Pocahontas' fictional story, you know, the one that's in the official history books, is told in a beautiful way that we can all finally understand. Absolute masterpiece. Manhattan, directed by Woody Allen. This is Annie Hall Part 2, pretty much. And if so, it's also a much better sequel than the original. You've never seen New York if you haven't had Woody Allen as your tour guide. Geronimo, an American Legend, directed by Walter Hill. A rootin' tootin' action-packed western that spends more time teaching you about the feelings of the legend instead of the status of the legend. The Searchers, directed by John Ford. The greatest western of all time? Hardly, according to me. But it's damn close. John Ford is a legend for a reason. This film is that reason. Inglourious Basterds, directed by Quentin Tarantino. In my opinion, this is his magnum opus. His love and obsession with films paid off by this time. There is no greater camera work or performances in his films than this one. Bed Rest, directed by Laurie Evans Taylor. This is a standard haunted house with a pregnant woman movie. However, the ending was clever, for a minute. It was enjoyable. Paths of Glory, directed by Stanley Kubrick, the film that warned us of the coming of the greatest filmmaker of the 20th century. All Quiet on the Western Front can't hold a candle to this masterpiece. You People, directed by Kenya Barris. An awkward, casual, funny rom-com whose message is completely thrown out the window when the two leads had to digitally kiss. Way to teach equality. Causeway, directed by Lila Neugebauer. An unbearably slow but deep look at the true character of a person with a way better equality message than You People. Repossessed, directed by Bob Logan. An absolute shitfest that is fucking hilarious. This might be a guilty pleasure, but I loved it. Alone at Night, directed by Jimmy Giannopoulos. Massive waste of potential. Love Ashley Benson, but even she couldn't save this horribly written, repetitive pile of shit. Body Parts, directed by Eric Red. Not the first time I've seen a movie about a possessed limb, but the first time I was thoroughly enjoyed by one. Great effects, too. Infinity Pool, directed by Brandon Cronenberg. This shouldn't be a controversial opinion, but I love it. In my eyes, Brandon is surpassing his dad, and this film maybe doesn't prove it quite yet, but it's a step in the right direction. When You Finish Saving the World, directed by Jesse Eisenberg. Another directorial debut that doesn't suck. I hated these characters. In a good way. The writing was superb. Shotgun Wedding, directed by Jason Moore. No Oscar nominations here, just good fun action and hilarious jokes. Graveyard Shift, directed by Ralph S. Singleton. The second Stephen King adaptation I don't like. The first is Cujo, but this movie is just dumb. I'm sorry, I can't. Bullet Train Down, directed by Brian Nowak. The Asylum strikes again. This time they tried to capitalize on Bullet Train. This movie is pointless and dumb, like everything from The Asylum. Just don't watch this movie. And last but not least, Babylon, directed by Damien Chazelle. What's wrong with people? This film was amazingly entertaining. Who has the balls to make an elephant shit joke barely 10 minutes in, and give Olivia Wilde 45 seconds of screen time, and spend 10 whole slow motion minutes watching Margot Robbie die from a snake bite? This movie is gold! Okay, well, there you have it. Somehow I was able to watch 68 movies in 1 month. God damn. I gotta get a job. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. And also, don't forget to like the video. That actually does help. I used to think that was something that YouTubers just said because that's like the standard outro, but it actually does help. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed yourself. And until next time, bye!